Next up, we're going to produce a bar chart on steroids, pretty much like the scatter plots on steroids in the previous video, but in a bar chart form. We're trying to squeeze a lot of information into one chart. And again, I'd like to highlight this, don't do this at home for any real project at work or at university. This is not a type of chart I would choose because it's way too cluttered and it's an information overload. And it's not really clear what the main message is. So that's not the point. I'm just doing this to show you how to use different functionality and add complexity to your graph, but also to show you how to manipulate various aspects of your graph. So this is the graph that we're going to produce now. And let's go to R. And rather than building the code step by step like I did in the previous video, I will just provide the whole code with you and run with you through each line and tell you what it does exactly, right? So you can easily replicate it. Now you'll see here that actually this one chart is almost 25, it's around 25 rows of code. So it's quite complex. However, it does everything in one. So it manipulates the data, it cleans the data, it restructures the data, and based on that, we're building this plot. So actually, it is quite efficient in a way that this can be all done in one go using the pipe operator that you are now very, very familiar with. So let's go. We start off again from our students data set. And first, we want to create a new variable that distinguishes between high and low performers. High performers are those students with a high grade point average, and low performers are those with a low grade point average, right? And this is the variable displayed here in the legend: grade performance, high performer, low performance, right? So this variable doesn't currently exist, so this is a good opportunity for us to revisit our data cleaning and data manipulation skills, right? So we use the mutate function and create a new variable called high performer. And the high performer variable takes the value of high performer as a character if the grade point average in 2010 was below 2, right? Smaller numbers here, like a 1 or 2, are signaling high grades, and lower numbers, 3, 4, 5, 6, are signaling poorer grades. Okay, so basically a 1 here, and a grade point average below 2 is a high performer. And if somebody is not a high performer, right, then it takes up the value of low performer. Okay. Then we create a new variable called job sex, and it's basically a combination of the sex of a student, male, female, and whether they have a job or not. We are combining two variables in one, so we can condense even more information in this one chart, right? We do this also with the case when function and say if somebody is male and has a job, we give it the value male side job. If they're female and have a job, we give it the value female side job, and so on, right? All possible combinations. If none of those combinations are met, we'll assign it a missing character value, and the new job sex variable is going to be a character variable. Okay, next we're going to drop missing values in the relationship variable, in the faculty variable, and in the course variable. Okay. Next up, we're going to group the whole data set by faculty, this new variable of job sex, and the new variable of high performer. And we're going to summarize the number of rows by each combination of these breakdowns, right? So let's run this to quickly show you what the data set looks like at the moment. And we see here we still have faculty information. We have sex combined with job status as one variable. We have the high performer variable, and we know how many students are in each one of those categories, right? So this is a type of three-way table at the moment, and we're going to convert this into a more complex bar chart. Okay. All right, we have the data. Now we're going to feed it into the ggplot. We're going to have the job and sex variable on the x-axis. On the y-axis, we have the number of observations that we calculated. We're going to distinguish, we're going to break up the bars by whether somebody is a high performer or a low performer. We're going to, in the geom bar function, state that we want to pull the numbers that are currently in the data set as is into the plot rather than having ggplot calculating something by itself, right? And we're also going to add the option position stack. So we want the bars to be stacked on each other rather than grouped next to each other. And please revisit an earlier video on this, on grouped and stacked bar charts, where we introduced this concept. So stat equals identity, position equals stack, then a new argument here, which is the scale fill manual. And we define here the values light blue and turquoise too. And we're basically manually assigning colors here to the two values, right? The fill argument was whether somebody is a high performer or not. And we're gonna assign colors to this fill by using scale fill manual, and manual assign colors here using the values argument equals, and then a vector of two names of colors here. Then we're going to further break up this whole chart by faculty like we've done before, but rather than having 2 columns, we now want 5 columns next to each other. Let's see what this looks like so far. Okay, so we have here we have the faculties, we have whether somebody is a high performer or low performer, and we have separate bars here for male and job status. And here we just have the number of students in our data set, right? Okay, we see that the axis description here, it doesn't really work out. You can't really read it well. And that's something that needs to be fixed. But otherwise, pretty clear graph. We immediately see that there are more students here in the business faculty. We don't quite know what their characteristics are, but we see basically the ratios of high performers and low performers throughout. Okay, this is where we are at the moment. Now we are going to add text to it. And basically label the bar charts with the number of observations, right? We're going to try to place the number of observations within the bar chart. We can do that with the geom text argument and add a position here and add position stack vjust, vertical adjustment 0.5, and then the aesthetics, which we're going to label observations, the number of students, and we're going to determine the size of that label. Okay, let's run that to see what that looks like. Okay, so we see now we added numbers to each of the bars, a new functionality that we introduced here. All right, we add labels, a title, a subtitle, a caption, and a fill, which labels the legend fill, which we have here. We also add a title for the x-axis and the y-axis. All of that you've already seen in previous videos. Something that's new now is that we're going to flip the coordinates. Actually, we're going to flip the x and the y-axis, and we're going to flip this whole chart over by 90 degrees. So now it's not vertical bars anymore, it's actually horizontal bars. And then lastly, we're going to determine a new theme, which we're going to use the theme underscore gray. Let's see what this monster looks like. Okay. Here we have our final chart. It's a grouped and a stacked bar chart at the same time. It involves at the moment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate variables, 5 different sources of information that go into this chart. And again, I would not recommend this to actually use it. It's not clear what it's actually telling us, but it's definitely showing you the different ways of customizing a bar chart.